Recording in progress.
Recording in progress. Hello and welcome to the Goldfinger Report on Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Network, satellite TV. We're welcoming to the show today Peter Flom to talk about learning disabilities. What are they? And welcome to the show, Peter.
Thank you.
Maybe you could tell the audience a little bit, what is a learning disability and who you are and how it affects your life as well. Thank you.
Okay, so a learning disability, there's various definitions, legal definitions and so on, which I can't quote. The general idea is it's something that affects your learning that isn't related to your general intelligence. So it's not that, people vary in how smart they are, from, super geniuses down to, well, not super geniuses. Most people have relatively even levels across different types of intellectual functioning. Usually the people who are good at reading are also reasonably good at writing and also reasonably good at, all the different things. Learning disabled people frequently are much worse at one thing than the others. For instance, dyslexia is one of the best known. That's people who have a whole bunch of trouble with reading that you wouldn't expect from talking to them, from their from their other abilities. There's dysgraphia, which is trouble with writing. There's a whole bunch of them. In terms of who I am, well, I'm a learning disabled adult. When I was in what would now be called preschool, my parents got a letter asking me not to return to preschool. They took me to a psychologist who told them that I had minimal brain dysfunction and would never go to college. In response to that, my mother got together with an educator and started a school, Gateway School of New York. And I skipped 12th grade. I did college in 3 years. I got my bachelor's at 20. Since then, I've written a book about learning disabilities called Screwed Up Somehow But Not Stupid, Life with a Learning Disability. I'm working on another book, which is more like a memoir, which is going to probably be called Gifted and Learning Disabled, Twice as Weird with Extra Fun. I have a website called IamLearningDisabled.com, and that's it.
Great. Could you tell us a little bit about your book, your first book?
Yeah, it's about being learning disabled, having, in particular, what I've got is a relatively unknown LD called nonverbal learning disability. And we have a lot of trouble with, among other things, the nonverbal aspects of communication. Okay, so I'm good with text, and most people with NLD are very good with text. Many of them are very good readers, writers, and so on. But communication is about all sorts of other things as well. Eye contact, body language, tone of voice. There's also some less known things like proxemics is how close you stand to someone, okay? So these vary, proxemics, for instance, varies a lot by culture. How you're supposed to stand is different in America than Italy, than in other places. But if you don't obey the rules, people get upset, and they don't even know that they're getting upset. Just think what happens when someone stands too close to you, right? You start to feel like that's not right. What are they doing? But what is too close? Well, that depends on a whole bunch of things. There's objectics, which is like what clothing you wear to different events. This is a problem for me. I get invited to a party or whatever, and what am I supposed to wear? Other people seem to know, oh, this party I should wear a suit and tie. That one I should wear shorts and a t-shirt, and all sorts of things in between. Like I said, there's tone of voice. A lot of NLP people have a problem with sarcasm, which is marked by tone of voice. I don't have that. There's volume. So for instance, you don't, suppose you're seriously involved with somebody and you want to propose marriage, you don't scream that across the dinner table. Will you marry me? No, and you don't whisper fire in a crowded theater. Those are extreme examples, but this can happen in other ways. So there are all these nonverbal aspects of communication that we have problems with. many of us, including me, have problems with space and time. So how long does it take to do something? You know, me, I generally overestimate the time it'll take to do something. So I'm often getting to the airport way before I'm supposed to. Now, I live in New York. I've been to LaGuardia Airport and dozens of times. I ought to know how long it takes to get there, but somehow my brain just says that I should leave earlier. Even other things like walks, how long does it take to get someplace? And then there's times with space. Like I get lost a lot. I got lost on my first day of 6th grade, even though it was in Manhattan, which for people not in Manhattan, it's a grid. You know, I was going from 79th and Madison to 85th and Lexington. I had the address, and somehow I couldn't find the building. I don't know.
I understand this very well, my friend, because I have spatial and time and space kinds of things that I'm a savant myself. So sometimes what happens is that I'll be doing a task and then I'll just completely draw a blank and I'll forget completely what I'm doing. I won't remember the directions. I mean, at jobs, I was a nightmare. Not a nightmare, but you know what I mean. I wasn't able to do my job. It was a nightmare for me because they'd ask me a simple task. And even that simple task, because of my analytical mind, would dissect it and make it something more complicated. Or sometimes, if the instructions are not well spoken out or written correctly, it will throw me for a loop. So just to share.
Yeah. So that kind of thing. So, and yet at the same time, I skipped 3 years ahead in mathematics. And I learned to read. I think I learned to read at a roughly usual age because no one's ever told me I learned to read real early. But right after learning to read, I got really good at it really fast. So when I was in 4th grade, they gave us some standardized test. I think it was called the Stanford Achievement Test. Anyway, some standardized test. I got above 12th grade level in reading.
Really?
There was a maximum score, and I was above the score. I just read everything, and I didn't do anything special. I liked to read, but lots of kids like to read. So I can't find the school, but I'm at 12th grade reading level. I have a PhD. I got lost on the campus, more than once. How do I get luckily most of my classes were in one building, but how do I get from the deli to the classroom? Oh, that would be a 5-minute walk. It would take me 20 minutes, but I wouldn't know, that was at Fordham up in the Bronx. And like most schools, they have a relatively undefined campus. It's not on some kind of grid or anything. It's just a campus with buildings here and there and curved path. Undergrad, I went to NYU, so that was easier, that's a grid. If I put something down, it disappears for me. I remember once I came home and I had a container of juice. I had to go to the bathroom, so I put the juice down, went to the bathroom, and then I spent 5 minutes looking for it in my apartment. It was a reasonable sized apartment, but this was a New York City apartment. This wasn't some sort of mansion, and so on. So these are a lot of problems. And then I have these abilities as well.
I understand that very, very well. I'm constantly losing. If I put my glasses down somewhere, I was at the airport and I couldn't find my glasses. I was like, "Where's my glasses? Did I drop them somewhere?" And anyway, so and the point of the story is this: it's how can we help ourselves? How can people with learning disabilities, with LDs, help each other, help ourselves in the situation where there's not a lot of time to figure out what you got to do. You got to find your things, you find your glasses, find your phone, find where you're going. How do we help ourselves?
Well, for that sort of thing, I actually wrote a blog post called "Can you please be less organized?" And because people always say, be more organized, put everything in its place, and that's not going to work for me. Everything isn't going to go in its place. I have a few key items that I need to be able to find. I got to know where my glasses are, or I really have trouble seeing. My glasses are either on my face, on my nightstand, or one or two other places, and that's it. I want to know what my phone is. So it's always in my right front pocket or on the table in front of me or on my bedstand. I don't put it anyplace else. If I do put it someplace else, then I spend a lot of time looking for it. My wallet is always in my left pants pocket, pretty much never anywhere else. When I wash my pants, I take it out, put it someplace, and then I put it back in my pants pocket. But I don't, but I only do that with a few items. Those three, my keys, a few other things. Nowadays, a mask, but I don't worry about where every item is. The other things in my life, I have a whole bunch of books, as you can see, all the sort of things that you have on a desk, notebooks for different tasks, and all sorts of things. And I don't really worry about where they are because I know that's not going to be a crisis. Oh, you can't find your notebook. Well, you can look for it a little bit. You don't have to have that, where a particular book is, I can, if I need to spend 5 or 10 minutes looking for a book, that's not a crisis. But there's no room in my head for all those things. And then I think more generally, I think of disability, any kind of disability, physical, learning, whatever, as like a mountain between where you are and where you want to go. So there's a few things you can do when you see a mountain in your way. You could say, oh, I didn't want to go over the mountain anyway. You could say, oh, I'm going to dig straight through the mountain. You can climb over the mountain or you can go around the mountain. So I think that well-meaning people, well-meaning adults, giving advice to kids or giving advice to other adults who aren't learning disabled tend to ignore the first one and the last one. You'll hear always never give up, always keep trying, work harder. Well, often that's good advice, but sometimes it's terrible advice, okay? If you're short, slow, and uncoordinated, you are not gonna make a career as a professional basketball player, okay? Everybody knows this, but yet they say you can do anything you want. No, you can't, okay? Recognize this. Sometimes giving up is the right thing to do. There are things that I can't do. For instance, I can't draw at all. I don't mean I can't make a picture of a face that's oh, there's Todd. I'll draw a picture of Todd and people will recognize it. I mean, I can't draw a cube, and I went to special ed school. People tried to teach me to draw. Then I got an MA in special education. More people tried to teach me to draw. Because if you tell special educators that you can't draw, this is like waving a flag, they're going to teach you. My ex-wife was an artist. She tried to teach me to draw. No. And my second son is also an artist, and he tried. No, it doesn't work. My brain doesn't do that. Just like with a lot of people, if you say, oh, here's the solution for a cubic equation. Isn't this simple? And they'll say, no, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. So sometimes give up. I can't do that. Okay, I can live without being able to draw, it's not some critical life skill. So that's something. And then the other thing I think people forget about is going around the mountain. So that's like tricks to do things. For instance, like I said, I live in Manhattan. I noticed that now I don't have any sense of direction. So I noticed one thing is on the side streets, the odd numbers are always on the north side of the street. Okay, so like I grew up at 31. 31 is the north side. So if you come out of a building number 31 and you're facing away from it, you're facing south. Okay. So then I've memorized where east and west are relative to south, and then I can figure out where I am. And I've developed various tricks for various things. So instead of trying harder to remember directions, that doesn't work for me. But I figured out a trick, and you can figure out your own tricks.
Sounds good. And I want to share with you that also my grandfather is a very, he passed, but he was a very excellent artist. He was a painter like you wouldn't believe. And the painting gene did not get passed on to me, but the music gene is well within me. And music is something that flows with me very easily. I can make music. I never learned how to read music. I graduated, I studied orchestration, but all this stuff, it didn't come naturally to me. I can't draw also. So some of these things, just like the mountain, it's okay to give up if, but not give up. Maybe take a break sometimes also. Wouldn't you
Yeah, I mean,
say? Or
sometimes, yeah, sure. Sometimes, I mean, everybody takes breaks, we go to sleep, for instance. Now, yeah, very
if we
short
can.
tasks. Yeah, yeah, okay, very short tasks, you don't take a break. But as you go to older childhood, adolescence, and adulthood, a lot of the tasks you have to do are long tasks. Okay, you're going to make breakfast. You don't take a break in the middle of pouring the cereal into the bowl, but you became a podcaster. You didn't one day say, okay, I'm going to be a podcaster and I'm going to do this and I'm going to work at it until I do it. And that's it. And no sleeping, no breaks, whatever. Of course not. Okay. I'm sure you had to learn all sorts of things, figure that how the software, figure out all sorts of stuff over weeks, months, years, even. Same thing like you said, you graduated, I got a PhD. Does take years. So of course you take breaks. But sometimes you do want to give up. Like I said, there's certain things I'm not going to be. All right. I'm a pretty good writer. I was a professional statistician. Uh, those are things I know how to do. There's other things that I'm not going to know how to do. Now, the big thing is figuring out which things you really never will be able to do, which things you could do if you just tried a little harder. And then you should figure out which things are worth the effort to you. Like I don't make my bed. Okay. If I try to make my bed, now for most people, it's probably 5 minutes, it's all done. For me, no, it takes a long time. It doesn't come out even. It does, and I just, you know what? I don't care if my bed is messy. The sheets aren't on the floor. I get into bed, I pull the sheet and cover over me, and I'm fine. Uh, is it worth it to me? No. If it was, maybe I would develop tricks. What's worth it to you? What's worth it to any person who's got any kind of disability? How much effort do you want to put in to get that result? Okay. I like to cook. I'm not very good at it. It plays on some of the things I'm bad at, but I keep trying because I like to cook. I like to eat. I like different food. Some people, they just eat because they have to survive, and they don't really care what they eat. And if they had a hamburger 4 days a week and chicken the other 3 days a week, every week, it wouldn't bother them. All right, fine. Then they don't need to learn to cook. Uh, but if you want to have a whole bunch of different food and you don't want to pay for meals eaten out every day of the week, then you need to learn how to cook a bit, you know?
What about with perfectionism?
Yeah, I somehow missed that, Gene. I didn't get too perfectionistic. In fact, I'm more careless than perfectionistic. And I will just like I would get things wrong on tests, and I still get things wrong in various ways where I know the answer, and it just doesn't click. And oh, you should go over your answer. Well, I found that when I went over my answers, I often made it wrong where it started out right as the other way around. So that wasn't very good. But I was never really perfectionistic. I know a lot of people are.
Yeah. So some ways that we can help ourselves because learning disabilities are a very real thing. I put myself in special ed as a teenager when I realized after my father's death that I was not the same person. My whole world turned black, and then basically I couldn't learn anymore. I couldn't learn Spanish. I couldn't learn anything. It was very difficult for me. The
How
books
did
didn't
you
mean
manage to
anything.
put your How did you manage to put yourself into special ed?
I put myself into special ed because I convinced the teachers that I had a learning disability, and I didn't know what a learning disability was. And a lot of the kids were saying that going to special ed meant that I wasn't smart enough and this and that. But being an only child, I had the inner wisdom to know that I was smart and that I was maybe smarter than most. And I didn't realize that, and I didn't know how to say it. But I said, you know what? Let me take this learn. learning disability, it wasn't a course, it was just basically they were showing me how to take tests in an easier way, how to do order of elimination through A, B, C, and if they have D also. And the standardized tests for me were not easy. Were impossible for me actually. And anytime I would see these standardized tests, I would feel nausea. I'd feel maybe a little bit of vertigo. And I'd feel maybe some inner panic because I feel like I'm being tested.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, like I said, there's various ways to help us. I've gone over some to help ourselves, and yeah.
That's great. And how can people find your book and your website? Because last time we said it, it might have
Well, my
not been so
book
clear.
is available at all the usual spots: BarnesandNoble.com, Powell's.com, Amazon. My website is IamLearningDisabled.com. So that's easy. And my book is also available from my website. I haven't blogged much lately on there. If people have things they would like me to write about, they can post a question on there. But there's a fair bit of blogging, a fair bit of posts on there already.
Yeah. And for anybody that's out there, if you're in school and you feel like you have a learning disability, don't be afraid to tell the guidance counselor.
Yeah, no, you should get help if you can. Your guidance counselor, there may be a special ed coordinator or something like that, especially in a bigger school. You can try talking to your parents. It depends on your relationship with your parents. Some people have very difficult relationships. Some people have relatively easy ones. And nowadays, you can research. There's the whole web. You can look up learning disabilities. Uh, there are the Learning Disabilities Association of America has a website. There's the National Council on Learning Disabilities. So if you just Google, you have to be careful as always with the web because anybody can post anything. So you don't know. But if you see something from an official site like the Learning Disabilities Association of America, okay, this is probably somewhat sensible anyway. You may not agree with every single thing on there, but you want to be careful to not get people, find people say there's no such thing as learning disabilities, you're all just a bunch of lazy jerks. So you'll find that. So ignore that. There's people
Yeah, I
like
mean, that kind of rhetoric hurts because inside of ourselves, we realize that some things are more difficult than other things to do, where we excel in other areas.
Yeah, I mean, these words can hurt. The person who said words, sticks and stones, they break my bones, but words will never hurt me, that's just complete nonsense. Words can really, really hurt you. And telling people they don't hurt only makes it worse because then they'll say, oh, my teacher said I'm an idiot, but that's not supposed to hurt me. There must be something even worse wrong with me. Of course, it hurts to be called stupid or
Or
whatever
lazy or
or
any of these
lazy.
things.
Yeah, I often say lazy is a four-letter word. Don't use it in front of children. Okay, we're not lazy. Okay, uh,
Very hardworking, actually.
yeah, uh, and I think a lot of people don't realize that for a lot of LD people, ordinary life is much more effort than it is for them. If you're neurotypical, there's all sorts of things that you do automatically, and we don't do very automatically. So it's effort for us. So we're putting forth that effort all day long.
Yes, it can be very exhausting and it can lead to depression and anxiety and things like that, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Panic attacks, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Well, yeah. Peter, is there anything else you'd like to tell the audience today?
I I think this is good. Any other questions you've got? But this is fine.
Great. I'll post my questions to your website.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, and I will be seeing you.
Sounds great. Have a great day.
Okay,
Thank you for watching Millennium News
okay,
TV, Global News Network. Have a great day. Take care.
thanks.
Bye. Peace.